nonprofits, let's raise more money. For this episode, Trevor had the amazing opportunity to be a guest for the Money Hole podcast with Chris Lamb. For more information about their podcast, click the links in the description. Let's get right into it.
So I'm a part of a couple nonprofits.
Yeah, I know.
And
Yeah.
One of them is, they're both incredible.
Okay.
But the one specific one, this is a nonprofit that I think has one of the most meaningful messages for what's happening today.
I like to know about it.
And the other part of this nonprofit that's unique is the people that are running it and around it are literally some of the most incredible people I've ever met in their life, who are connected to the greatest world changers I've ever known.
They're connected to the mission.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And yet one of the biggest challenges they have is they have the best ideas, the greatest vision. They have the people, the connections. But man, it was the first time where I realized connections, vision, mission, purpose without resources.
Difficult.
100%. And
I'd have a hard time raising money.
I never even knew there was a need for someone like you. And now I know that so much. In fact,
for
I'm going to try to connect.
I'm not saying it for me, but I'm just saying,
well, yeah,
there's a need for all of those organizations to raise money.
Yeah.
Right?
So I want to shift here and talk about money because,
Okay.
with what you do, you're addressing that need, but you're also around people who have resources.
100%.
And what are some of the things that you've learned by seeing these people who are generous in like their life and how it affects their life? And, what has that taught you about generosity by being around wealthy people that give money?
Oh, yeah. Countless things. I don't know how long we have, but yeah.
Keep going.
A couple things, man. One is, and I have a habit of not answering questions directly. These nonprofits, they're a 501c3, right? That's just a tax designation. They're still a company.
Right.
They still have to make payroll. They still have to serve the mission, their constituents, whoever they might be, right? Conservation. We're big in the conservation space. I know that you really believe in that big time in your bones, and I think that's amazing because I've seen it in real life. What I've noticed is in working with nonprofits, a couple things. I think it actually has something to do with a societal relationship with money, actually, right? Which you could speak to for hours and hours and hours, and you do on a regular basis. And I think a lot of times when you're working at a nonprofit, you're thinking with your own checkbook. I think there's a lot of trepidation, societal, once again, with making a big ask for money. I think that when you have a board, when you have a committee, people that are either there's 0 degrees of separation of wealth or there's 1 degree of separation of wealth, right? We all, there's not very much separating us these days. It's kind of a beautiful time to raise money if you think about it.
Yeah.
It really is predicated on your outlook, right? And I think realizing there's a massive amount of money in the system, right?
Yeah.
You know this, right?
That's why the Fed can't break this economy.
Brother.
It's resilient.
And yeah, we've been through some of the hardest times and we've seen nonprofits firsthand raise more money than they ever had before and serve people like doing God's work. You know what I mean? Real amazing. I mean, like we work with nonprofits of all shapes and sizes, Muscular Dystrophy Association, neurodegenerative diseases, an organization that sends children that have been affected by cancer and their siblings to camp, like everything, conservation, small Catholic schools, this and the other thing. And the ones that hit out of the park are not afraid to ask for money. They're not afraid to be creative. There's an amazing injection of, like the people you were describing with your nonprofit, amazing injection of talent into the nonprofit space. I'm very grateful for that. COVID, for lack of a better explanation, kind of ushered a lot of that in. Super grateful for that because of the work that these organizations are doing. But there's so many resources out there, but sometimes folks don't really like that. Once again, there's a lot of preconceived notions about money or should I ask? Or, we talk about this day in and day out. It's like, if you get a meeting with someone that has wealth or a Fortune 1000 company that literally has someone probably on staff that their job is to distribute funds to nonprofits locally or nationally or globally, or you just know someone that has crazy capacity and access, you're in their office for a reason. They know you're going to ask them for money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I just think tearing down the trepidation and fear that people have. I mean, it's like cold calling.
Yeah.
Right? There's so much symmetry between that. And it's difficult.
Yeah.
It's difficult to get on the phone and ask people for money. It's difficult to sit down in someone's office when you've never met them before, but maybe you've only, seen them at an event and shook their hand and maybe shared a telephone call with them. It's very difficult to ask them for $50,000.
Yeah.
But it's that $50,000 that's going to make, affect the change that you're looking to affect in the world and send 50 kids to camp.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's real. So getting people to tear down, once again, thinking with their own checkbook. It's like people that have wealth are, like they have wealth. But at the end of the day, they're still people.
And
right?
they didn't always have wealth. And
100%.
And I think the people watching this, a lot of them, I'm trying to picture myself listening to this conversation.
Sure.
And the average person, 25 to 45, watching this.
Okay.
I would probably think to myself, well, that would be cool. I would love to be able to write a check for 50,000 someday.
Yeah.
I think the real thing that would be cool is I would love to be the person that is excited and capable of giving that kind of money one day. You've been hanging around with some rich people, and this is your world right now.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the things you would say to like someone who's a middle-class family who listens to this podcast, who wants to learn how to invest, and, they can't even really, like, writing a $50,000 check is a little too far for them.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what would be some of the things you would share with someone like that?
About giving?
Yeah. About how putting themselves in the position where giving's even an option.
Oh, gosh. I mean, you'd probably be a better person to ask that than me.
But I'd love to hear it from you, man.
What we say a lot of times we'll give folks little tidbits. We'll say, I know that you can, and I know that you care, Mm-hmm. So even if it's the $1,000 donor, if you galvanize enough of them, they're just as important as the $10,000 per. We don't say the $50,000 figure very often. We say can write a check for $10,000 and not miss it. How many people on your board know someone that can write a $10,000 check and not miss it? Sure. Is what we say all the time, right? But for folks that are our age or younger or whatnot, what's interesting is the demographic and the willingness to give has changed dramatically over the last couple of years. A lot of younger people giving to a lot of different organizations. There was a time and a trend to give to one organization that you really did care about deep in your soul. Yep. Maybe it was your child's school or your alma mater, right? Or you're an alumni of whatever program or whatever, and you were really, really, down for that cause. Now we're seeing giving spread out, right? And
I have a theory for why, by the way.
Oh, I'd love to hear it. Yeah.
When I started this podcast, to be honest with you, I didn't know exactly what it was or what it was. And I don't think
that's kind of the beauty of it. I like that. It's exciting. I think it's exciting.
But as I've been focusing on what I say, OPM, other people's money with my team, with my friends, and I'm starting to realize that people right now are starting to understand, they may not even have the language for it, that our country is on an unsustainable path in so many ways. And I think that people deep down are starting to realize like they need to find a way to make change. And I think what my whole thing is it's got to start with you. And I know that sounds cliche, but specifically with your own money.
Yeah.
Like if you can't get your money healthy and figure out how to put yourself in a position where you have options. Money doesn't buy happiness, but it does buy options. Then you won't be able to call a guy like you and say, hey, my kid had this issue and he's better now because of your nonprofit. How do I get involved in that?
Yeah.
Because I really want to be able to sew into what you guys are doing because it helps someone I know.
Absolutely.
And so really that's what this podcast is becoming, is trying to help people get to a place where giving and being a part of a nonprofit is even something they can do.
Absolutely.
If you talk to anyone who has money and is happy, whole, you'll realize they have a tremendous amount of purpose in their life. And usually it comes down to, at the end of the day, writing checks.
Totally. I think it's easier to access and to see in real time what these organizations are doing, which I actually think is really, really cool, especially on a community level. You can really go and get out there and see it. I think that's awesome. You can see the work that these organizations are doing. People like to, and the light's on. You know what I mean? You can call it whatever, the internet, with the age that we're in right now or what have you.
Chat GPT.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what is also something very interesting, Chris, that we like to say too, or at least that we've noticed. People like to be a part of a winner when it comes to, helping a nonprofit or being a part of a certain charity or a conservation group. People like to be a part of a winning recipe and a winning organization.
Giving is fun.
It is really fun because seeing what happens, right, to children, for instance, we always use, because that's obvious, right? Helping children is amazing. We see it a lot with Habitat and the conservation groups that we work with and whatnot. Seeing that in real time is palpable. It's visceral. It inspires giving. and the light's on. And then you were talking about what's going on with the world and the country. And I think that there's absolutely a battle between light and darkness right now. You can see it everywhere. But I do think that having your platform and talking, just having conversations, I think it galvanizes people, right? And there's more that unites us. Obviously, I'm not trying to get get all what have you pontificating or what have you, but there's more that galvanizes us than not, right?
Yep.
And we have more commonality than we think.
Yeah. I agree, man. So, well, in wrapping up here, I wanted to ask you a question. Your life has changed so much since I first met you, man.
Tremendously.
And I would love to hear, like, when we talk about this, it seems like you're pursuing some incredible things. You're on your bike, you're hanging out with incredible people, and you have such a big purpose in your life. What does the future look like for you when you think about who you're becoming and the way your partnership with your marriage, your kids, are you retiring, staying in shape? You said you're riding bikes now instead of running every day.
Yeah.
What's your vision?
My vision looks very bright.
Well, that seems very apparent. Some really tactical.
I'm not trying to be,
some tactical things.
Well, I will say I'm actually gonna answer something about the past before I talk about the future. And what I realize now in hindsight is that I was very patient with myself. There's a lot of times where I was doing a lot of stuff that didn't equate into dollars in the bank.
Yeah.
And I had apple juice and peanut butter and jelly in the fridge, and I had a little one. Yeah. And then I got, there's times where I was competing full time as a triathlete, and I got sponsored by a cookie company, and I had no money and I didn't have a lot of food. And I just remember, a couple times a month, I'd get these really, really dense caloric cookies shipped to me. Right. And I didn't know, I loved it, and I love being in shape, and I love being outside every day, and that really tickled me. And I didn't know how it was going to pay off. And what was interesting, and the reason why I feel like my future is bright, and I don't know what the outcome is. I'm certainly not going to retire. You mentioned retirement. I don't, I'll never stop, doing something.
That was probably the wrong.
No, just so. And that's a lovely goal to have, by the way, because I want people to retire and travel and enjoy the sunshine, to put your, toes in the sand, so to speak. And I enjoy that stuff very, very much. I was patient with myself. I didn't know how those things were going to pay off for me. And what it ended up doing was it made me feel like I could really do anything, frankly, if I could train all day or do Ironman or run a 50-mile race and stuff like that. I just felt like my little secret for me was like, I don't think anyone can match my pace, or, stuff in because I would come into the business world and it's like, I don't think anyone can match my pace, because I was just out killing myself, for hours and hours and hours. And I didn't know how that was going to equate. And it really did. And I'm just, you don't have to have everything figured out by the time you're 30 or 35 or even 40. And I don't even have things figured out right now.
I'm 43.
Will. Right. And it's just, I'm really, really enjoying the time.
Yeah.
I'm really, really enjoying the people that I get to come into contact with and share these stories with. It's all very, very fascinating to me, the entire journey. I just growing this company has been, it's paramount to me, and I see the work that we're doing. Yeah. And pretty amazing time for us, and I'm very, very enthralled with what the future holds, right? And trying to affect as much change as we possibly can in a positive way. I got a little one at home. You got little ones. Yeah. I mean, that keeps us busy, and I got a lovely wife who just finished her last day of school today, so I get to have her at home for the summer. So she's a teacher, so that's really, really cool.
It's going to be a good summer.
It's going to be really great, man. It's going to be really great. Yeah. So,
Trevor, when I look at you, and in closing, I see you as someone who has it all and is successful.
Oh, thank you.
From my definition of success, having it all, the marriage, the family. Your money's whole. It's not all about it, but you also know it's important. You're raising money, you're changing the planet. And I've always seen you that way. And I think one of the things I want to end with is just, I was talking to a guy yesterday on a Zoom call who owns a bunch of companies on TV, works with Tony Robbins, golfing with this guy named Grant Cardone, who some people will know.
Right.
And one of the things he was telling me in some of the marketing he's helping with, he said, the first thing I tell everybody is they need to have put their head down and became the best at something for 10 years with blinders on. He's like, because if you don't do that first, and when I hear your story, like that's what I hear is like, sure, it was different than what I did or what David did or some other people, but you had your blinders on and you became excellent at something that was totally outside of what you're doing now, but you paid your dues. And now you're in this whole new adventure and journey, and the skills that you learned were totally applicable, and the relationships you built are key and paramount. So
that's your equity.
Yeah. So I appreciate you for coming on, man. Thanks, and making time for me.
Yeah. I'm tickled to be here. Yeah. Thanks for having me, man. Yeah.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening. If you love our podcast, click the download button, rate us, and follow us on social media at HGA Fundraising. Get out there, start fundraising, and raise more money. See you next time.